Going to do one traditional business item, which is the consent agenda containing routine business items that can all be approved in one action. Then Sandy is going to have a few moments to share just some thoughts and share a little bit of the outpouring of support that the district has received in the last week and 2 days. From that, we are going to move into a closed session, which I will introduce in more depth when we get there. But I expect that closed session will likely last several hours before we adjourn the closed session and come back to the general meeting to adjourn. So just want to give everybody who may be watching a sense of how we're going to spend our time and what is to come. So with that, is there a motion to approve the general meeting agenda for this evening?
I motion to approve the agenda as it appears. I'm sorry, I motion to approve the superintendent's.
How about the general meeting agenda?
I motion to approve the general meeting agenda as it appears.
Second. So we have a motion by Francesca Pagan-Umar, a second by Ann Casey. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the agenda is approved. Next on the agenda is open forum for community comments. We did not receive any requests for people to address and speak with the board this evening. So we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Sorry, was that Sarah? Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion by Sarah Johansson and a second by Regina Neville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the consent agenda is approved. And we will move on to our superintendent's report this evening. Sandy.
Thank you. I just briefly wanted a chance to publicly acknowledge both the tragedy, as our board chair talked about, that occurred in our district over the last couple of weeks. And through that tragedy, the outpouring of humanity that came to the district, to us collectively, in an experience like this, you meet and interact and grieve with people that you don't know. And I want to just acknowledge the powerful funeral service yesterday and the opportunity to meet multiple family members and multiple members of the community. We came together as one to support Jamari's family, and yet the experience left me humbled like no other. I will reflect back on it for a number of years about the power of the voices that spoke and the power of the audience in receiving what they said. I think the messages should be one that we all take to heart as we go forward. But I also want to speak to the school community, the members of the South Education staff. Really pleased that Deb could join us tonight. Her leadership has been extraordinary in the face of unspeakable emotions over the last 10 or 12 days. And we are grateful for the leadership she's provided. So thank you for being here tonight, Deb. But the staff in her building have also run the whole range of emotions. And we are grateful for everything they've done under the pressures of the last week. They also are grieving, and we care for them, and we'll care for them going forward. Our families as well. They went through an experience that no parent wants to go through, and yet their outpouring and expressions of concern and support for the district were heartwarming in a moment when we needed our hearts to be warmed a bit. So thank you to all the parents in our school community, but especially the South Education Center. And then the outpouring from the broader education community, not just in Minnesota, but from across the country, has been one that I I guess in my wildest dreams, I didn't imagine would come pouring in the way that it did, from little tiny communities and schools in Northwest Minnesota to the big districts like Minneapolis and St. Paul. It truly was part of what carried us forward over the last several days, and we're grateful for the education community who understood what we were going through and tried to support us. And then our legislators, both state and local, who have reached out in great numbers to us as a school district, Governor Walz and Commissioner Mueller, who came to the building the day after the tragedy occurred, and have been in communication with us since that time. Senator Tina Smith reached out to us, both her education staff, and she called me personally. So there is a community that cares for us, and we will call on them as we need going forward. So thank you to all those parts of the last week and a half. I think when you go through something like this, you remember the people who you interacted with for a long time. And I know that was true of myself, and I suspect everyone in this room. So thank you, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Sandy. I just also want to acknowledge that in addition to all of the people who are doing Herculean work in the most horrific of circumstances, that you are included in that. And the way that I've personally seen you utilize fierce advocacy in this moment for our students, for our families, and for community, through press conferences, through conversations with elected officials at the funeral yesterday, matters and is being seen by many, many people. And I think I speak for all of us when I say we are deeply grateful and deeply proud to have you as our leader in this moment. Is there anything anybody else would like to share on that before we move forward? So as I mentioned at the very beginning, we are going to move now into closed session. And I just want to say a couple of words about that, because I understand it could be frustrating for people who may be watching this after the fact, to understand why we're spending this time in a non-public discussion. There is a statute in Minnesota law that allows and enables private board discussions for security briefings and reports, given that discussion in open meeting could compromise safety. And given that we are going to be discussing in detail the gun violence that occurred at the South Education Center on Tuesday, February 1st, we felt like for this conversation this evening, it would be important for us to be able to have that conversation in private as a board. I also want to make a public commitment as board chair and as a district that we are going to have as many conversations in public as we can. We know that tonight is just the first of many conversations that we are going to be having as a board about safety, about our students, about the path forward. But tonight we made the decision that we felt like this conversation would be best to have in private, utilizing statute 13D.05, subdivision 3D. So with that background, is there a motion for the board to move into closed session?
So move.
I heard Shannon, and then who was this other one? Okay, so motion by Shannon Andreessen, a second by Heidi Marty. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.